What's going on, guys? TalkAstonVilla here, back for another video. We have a guest here. It's Louis from 100% Chelsea. How you doing?
How you doing, mate? Nice to be here. It's a new experience. So yeah, let's give it a go. Give it a whirl.
Yeah, for sure. So, of course, we're going to be talking about Roberto Di Matteo, the new Villa boss, and his number two, Steve Clarke, which I think has been confirmed, but I'm just going to say it is because it's basically been broadcasted by everyone. So, of course, we got Louis in today, who is a Chelsea fan, of course, to talk about Di Matteo. Of course, we know his successes at Chelsea. So, first, Louis, getting into it, what are your thoughts on Di Matteo being the new Villa boss?
Well, for me, I think it's a good step for Aston Villa. I mean, this season it has been an absolute shambles. I know it's rich coming from me after going from top of the table to slap bang right in the middle. But it. I mean, obviously you've got is it Tony Ja, the new.
I don't even know how to pronounce it, so I just call him Tony.
let's stick with Tone. So Tone, good old Tone. He obviously wants to get you back to where Villa should be. Villa, being a great old lady of British football, being one of those massive clubs. I don't think Di Matteo would be the manager which will take you all the way to the top. But no. I think he's a good first step. He's a solid manager. Obviously, he hasn't managed in the Championship for a good few years now. It's a tough league. Everyone knows that. It's going to be tough to get out of. But he's what a lot of people seem to misunderstand with Roberto Di Matteo. He's Chelsea legend, great manager and whatever. He also had quite a lot of luck. I mean, that season we won the Champions League. I mean, if you're talking about teams that didn't deserve to win it, we were 100% one of those. I mean, we won it. That's great. That's fantastic. We played well. We were solid when we needed to be, which is another great thing about Di Matteo. I mean, he knew what to do. But he obviously had John Terry, Didier Drogba, Frank Lampard, Petr Cech. He had that core which sort of understood the concept of what they needed to do. They were good players. And I think he's a good manager. But the issue for you is I don't feel you have that core of players to. Let's not be polite. You don't have that core of players to obviously. For me, I don't feel you'll bounce straight back unless you really, really spend in the transfer market. But financial fair play in the Championship is really strict. It is ridiculously strict. So it's going to be difficult for you. But I think what the first thing that Di Matteo needs to do is to sign some players. And basically, he needs to look at Villa as if it's just a blank page, a blank canvas, and just go, right, I want this, I want this, I want this. This will work here and this will work here. I think you've got someone who knows the Championship well as a striker in Rudiger Stead. I think that's where your starting point should be. Because even in the Premier League, he caused problems for people. So obviously that's your starting point, and he just needs to go and look at it. But he's a good coach.
So if you're trying to rate Di Matteo in the Premier, is he a Premier League manager? I guess you could say. And what part of the table? Lower, middle, top 10?
It's difficult to say because it all depends. You can't really say a manager is it's difficult because I think if you're saying it like that, I'd say Di Matteo is mid-table. Maybe just about pushing for top 10, yeah. But that all depends on the players you have.
And of course, if you're in the Premier League.
Yeah, well, and you're in the Premier League. But with Chelsea, I think he was unfairly sacked. I think he was doing well, and it was just a little bump in the road. And then every manager at Chelsea that's been there's been a little bump in the road or a big bump in the road in terms of Abramovich wanted to back Mourinho, but obviously. The manager gets sacked. So I think he was wrongfully sacked, personally, for me. Even if he had done terribly in the Champions League, I don't think it was fair for him to be sacked in the manner that he was, because I thought in the Premier League he was still thereabouts. He was doing well.
He brought in decent players as well.
Yeah, he did. He brought in Oscar. He brought in Hazard. He did bring in some good players. Obviously, some not such good players like Marco Marin, but the less said about them, the better. I mean, they're on our 40-player loan list, but But I think Di Matteo at the end of the day is a mid-table to top 10 Premier League. But it all comes down to variables. If you came straight back and you had a very, very strong squad, you can't really say. It's difficult.
Now, going off what you said about the loan list, do you think he'll use that to his advantage, obviously having Chelsea connections? And if so, what kind of players could we be looking for and to potentially see at Villa Park next season?
If you're looking at Chelsea line players, there are quite a few which I think will fit quite well. Let me just get out the big piece of paper. It's like a never-ending roll. I think what you need, because this the way you suffered the most, is you need good defence. And I think players like, unless they're coming into our squad, but player like Thomas Callas and Kenneth Amuro, who have been on loan at Middlesbrough, who have the championship experience, they've got obviously some really they've played well. They're with Middlesbrough, they've been promoted. So if they come back and they don't go back out, or they don't go back out to Middlesbrough, I think that could be somebody to look, a couple of players to look at, because you do need that solidity. I think they're good players, but I think there are a lot which are just, I don't think they'd want to drop to that level. Players like Lucas Piazon, I think, would be good for you. Marco Pasalic. There's lots of different players out there, but it's a case of I think he'll use those connections, but I don't think he'll really go for them. I think he'll look elsewhere personally.
Fair enough. And we'll move on to Steve Clarke as his number 2. Obviously, he played for Chelsea, had a bit of a coaching role at Chelsea as well. How do you think he'll fit in as his number 2? And also from a Chelsea perspective, do you think he'll thrive in that role, or it'll be more of a conflict of interest with him obviously being a manager before, West Brom, Reading, and Di Matteo being the number 1?
I don't think it'll be a conflict of interest, because I think both of them played together at Stamford Bridge. Steve Clarke was the number 2 to Jose Mourinho when he first started, and that combination, it is fantastic. He is a very, very, very good coach. I think Steve Clarke is, for me personally, I think as a manager, he did really well with West Brom in that first season. But it's a case of I have no idea what went wrong in that second season. But I do think he's a very, very good coach. I think Di Matteo is a good manager. From what I've read, Di Matteo would be running the show, but in terms of the actual coaching, that's down to Steve Clarke. He thrived in that role at Chelsea, and he obviously pushed for players. He pushed them. And basically, what a lot of your players need is a slap on the backside and tell them, you need to do this. You need to get yourself in shape. And a bit more, but that'll be pushing for the Geneva Convention, and we don't want to do that. But I think it's someone to get players in shape as a coach. You can't go wrong with a Scotsman. I think a Scotsman, that tough upbringing, living in caves and all that sort of stuff, they'll be fine. But I do think with Steve Clarke in that role, he'll create something very, very solid.
Very true. I mean, obviously, different nation, but of course we had Roy Keane, and that was interesting in itself. So we'll have to see how stern he is there. But from my perspective, when I look at Steve Clarke, when I look at Di Matteo, it's the perfect blend of every position, from your attack to your forwards to your defenders. Goalkeeping's a different situation, because flappy hands Guzan could, in my opinion, piss off. But I don't know, just looking at it now, I won't really get into my thoughts, but we'll get more of yours here. Quick little assumption here, little guess. How long do you think it'll take for Villa to get up? 1 year, 2 years?
2 to 3, I think, because it's a very tough league to bounce straight back up. I know it's a bit stupid saying that, considering Hull and Burnley have just jumped straight back into the Premier League,
and it's going to be harder than ever now with the money and everything.
Yeah, but it's also a case of, with those two clubs, I think Hull is very nip and tuck. I think they are a Premier League side. They are very, very good, and they should be in the Premier League, because they've got good defenders, Premier League experience like Michael Dawson. You've got Jake Livermore in there, Tom Huddleston. They've got some very, very good, solid players. And with Burnley, I just think they're like QPR. They're one of those sides which is going to go up and down like that. So I think, for me, Burnley are going to come straight back down again. But I think for you guys, it's a case of, even though you have players with Premier League experience, they don't care. It's difficult to say. If in pre-season Di Matteo and Steve Clarke whip them into shape and they start going for it, I'll hold my hands up, say I was wrong. But I'm looking at it in the right here, right now. I'm saying these players have no motivation, they have no drive, they don't care. the highlight of your season was Julian Lescott accidentally sending his car out on Twitter. That sums up your season, basically. It's been a car crash and the players don't care, don't push. I mean, there are players. I mean, Micah Richards, for me, I think he's a very good defender. He's not a centre-back because he's the size of a
don't even get me started there.
I like him personally. I think he's a very good defender and I rate him very highly. And I think it's unfair he should be branded with the same, terminology as for every player that you guys have obviously been using practically every word you could under the sun to describe this team. But I do think Micah Richards did care. You could see that. I mean, it was at the FA Cup, it was all over the internet. A load of your fans went up to him and he said, "Look, no, I do want this. I do want to do well." I think Micah Richards is a good player, and I think that could be another player to build your team around. And I would keep hold of Micah Richards. I'd offload, even though he's supposed to be a villain through and through. He's really not shown at the season. Gabby Bonglahor, I think you should offload.
Yeah.
I don't know about Guzan, because Guzan's over the past few seasons in the Premier League, he's actually looked pretty solid. He's looked all right.
Except the last 2 years.
Well, it's a case of you haven't had that defence in front of him. And the whole idea to bringing in Julian Lescott and Micah Richards was to have that defence in front of him. But you need to get that defence in front of him. He is a good keeper. I mean, he's in the US national team. I mean, he's not bad, is he? So he's got a. This is an outsider looking in. This is an outsider looking in. I'm an eternal. I love Villa. I mean, I'm not a Villa fan, but in terms of what Villa's been for British football, I just think the way it's been run this season, and as a football fan in general, it's just not been what it should be. It should be up there. It should be one of. It's a massive club. It's a huge club, and it all went tits up when you didn't hit top four, and then Randy Lerner went, "Oh, we're not going to hit top four. I'm just not going to spend any money anymore," and it's just slowly deteriorated since then. But it needs to get back up there. That club deserves to be in the Premier League.
Fair enough. Anyways, we'll wrap it up here. We'll give you a few little one-fire, couple word questions. First of all, going over it again, yes or no, will Di Matteo succeed?
Yes.
Do you think Steve Clarke will succeed? I guess we'll go into that one next.
Yes,
okay.
100% he will succeed.
100%. Okay. And what if you could say 2 players that Villa should sell? Who should it be?
Gabby Bonglahor. Has Julian Lescott already gone?
No.
Julian Lescott. There you go. That's it.
There we go. Anyways, we'll wrap it up there. It's been a good chat. A few mistakes here and there, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. But anyways, if we want to find you, Louis, where can we find you?
Well, you could find me on my personal channel. I'll put will there be a link in the description, hopefully? There's something, thank you. On my personal channel called The Boogaloo, that'll be down in the description. But also, if you want to find me for all talk about Chelsea Football Club, and just in general, some good fan insights and people who love their club, you will find me on 100% Chelsea. There'll also be a link for that down in the description. I've always been good at those. I love that. But you can find me there. And also, obviously, there will be, if you just want general football chat as well, subscribe to the Ball Street channel.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot for coming on. It was really enjoyable. Guys, like the video, share it around. Let me know what you think of the Di Matteo appointment. Steve Clarke, how will they do? Who should we buy and sell? All that good stuff. I'll see you guys on Friday. Peace out.